Okay, sure. Hi, Andrew Pershing. I'm the Vice President for Science at Climate Central, and I'm here in Dubai at COP28.
Before we get to specifics, what's the overall vibe there kind of been? Is it because you've been to other COPs? Is it a similar feel? Is it bigger? Is it different? What would you tell people in 30 or 60 seconds what's going on and how it feels over there right now?
Yeah, so the COP is a really interesting it's a really interesting event. So the core of it are the negotiations, right? People like, John Kerry representing the United States and his counterparts, they're really trying to figure out what agreements they can put together that will put us on a better path towards reducing the amount of carbon pollution in the atmosphere and staving off the worst of global warming. And then kind of surrounding that are folks like us. We're technically observers, and there's this whole kind of, they call it the blue zone, which is what you see behind me, and it's part science conference, part trade show. A lot of just folks just trying to, a lot of the kind of climate community coming together to try to take stock of where we're at and where we're going and how we can do better. So the loss and damage fund, my understanding is that that's established. They still have a lot of work to do to actually get money into it. But that seems like that's going to go, and that's a really great achievement because, we are so lucky in the United States, and that while we're seeing a lot of impact, they're nowhere near as strong as some of the impacts in places like Africa and Central America and the countries that just really don't have the resources to deal with the challenges.
Another thing that made some news over here in the last day or two is an agreement about methane specifically. Obviously, that's a much stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. It does have a shorter lifespan in the atmosphere. So, why is the phase down or removal or some kind of methane agreement important here?
I think this is probably the singular best thing that has happened out of last COP and then this one together are these various methane pledges, because as you said, it's a super pollutant. It has so much more warming potential than carbon dioxide, that if we can reduce methane emissions, we can buy ourselves a little bit of extra time to then deal with the carbon dioxide problem, which is a much thornier problem. I mean, and the great thing about methane is that nobody wants it leaking, right? The fossil fuel industry, that's money that's just going into the atmosphere. They would rather take that and send it into the supply chain so that it could get burned, where that's not great, but it's better to burn it into CO2 than it is to put it in the atmosphere where you get that direct hit of methane warming.
The other thing that's kind of going back and forth here in the States is we hear phase down versus phase out, and a little buzz back and forth on the wordsmithing of those two things. Does that seem to be as big of a deal there in these negotiations, or are we kind of overselling that here in the States?
No, I mean, I think that's the big sticking point, as I understand it, is really the language about how it really comes down to how ambitious are we going to be, how quick are we going to be at reducing CO2 emissions, and really, are we going to acknowledge what a crisis that we're in, right? Where we really are seeing people around the world suffering and dying right now because we have too much CO2 in the atmosphere, and that's only going to get worse. And so the big challenge is, can we do this fast enough? How ambitious can we be? And so that's what this debate over the language is all about. And it sounds very esoteric around these different words, but it has huge implications for how aggressive the nations of the world are agreeing to be on the carbon problem.
And of course, there was a lot of racket about having this in Dubai in the first place, a city kind of synonymous with oil and gas wealth. In the real world, has there been any kind of repercussions of that on the ground that you've seen, or is everybody just kind of going about their normal thing and at this event?
Yeah, I mean, I think the event takes place, in a bubble, no matter where it is, right?
Hmm.
You're kind of in this world, talking to the people you're going to talk to. I have to say, Dubai is a very welcoming country, but the cognitive dissonance is very profound here, right? We go from, an area where we're staying that has, these glittering high-rise buildings to this, really beautiful expo center, but the train ride along the way passes the world's largest liquefied natural gas facility, and there's a lot of smog in the air, and it's just, there's just a lot of strange tension here, I have to say. We're so lucky in the US to have folks like you, to have the National Weather Service and all of the data and tools and models and forecasts that we have to keep us safe. That is not something that the rest of the world has. And that's one of the other big conversations that we've really tried to pay attention to, is the conversations led by the United Nations around early warnings for all, and to try to make sure that everybody around the world has the ability to know when that big storm is coming, to know what to do about it.